You're listening to the New Artist Workshop.
No living man may hinder me.
But no living man am I. You look upon a woman. Eowyn am I.
Hello and welcome back to your favorite podcast. Now that's what I call a franchise. I'm Peter Mancuso.
And I'm Viviana Metzger, and this is the show where Peter and I pick a film franchise and go through every single installment. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
And to be clear, we're defining a franchise as a series of films with at least 4 entries. So Viviana, what are we talking about today?
Alright, so today we are talking about the 1980 film, The Return of the King. And this is your one and only spoiler warning, so if you haven't watched the movie, go do that before listening to this episode.
It's really great because for the last 3 that we watched, we basically have covered all of it, of the books. Mm-hmm. So we'll still give you guys a spoiler warning for the other movies, but technically, you've already been warned in our prior episodes. So if you don't know anything about Return of the King, go do that and then come back. Well, I guess we can still spoil specific moments or things about the movie.
Can I read the blurb?
Okay, yes, I'm sorry.
Alright, here's the letterbox blurb. 2 hobbits struggle to destroy the ring in Mount Doom while their friends desperately fight evil Lord Sauron's forces in a final battle.
A final battle would imply there's been other battles, but this is like the first movie.
The only battle.
So here's the thing, we'll talk about it, is that this is really... This whole franchise has been very weirdly situated because Rankin and Bass did a Hobbit adaptation. An adaptation in 1977. Then, separately, Ralph Bakshi adapted the first 2 books. Mm-hmm. And then that was in 78. And then in 1980, this comes out adapting the 3rd and last book. You would think that maybe Rankin and Bass jumped from The Hobbit to this one because of the Bakshi movie. As we'll find out. No. Their plan was always to go from The Hobbit to Return of the King. Which is preposterous.
Strange.
But I will say, spoiler alert.
I guess why tell another Hobbit story when you have a Hobbit story?
Because it's a completely different story.
I know. I don't know.
In every way imaginable.
I'm just trying to rationalize. I'm just trying to think maybe what they thought.
I don't know if that's what they... I mean, I'm not bagging on you for trying to rationalize. I just don't know if that's the reason.
I don't know.
If so, that'd be a very silly reason. But here's some basic info about it. It's like we mentioned, it was directed, again, by Arthur Rankin Jr. and Jules Bass, of course, of Rankin and Bass fame. Written by Romeo Muller, who wrote a lot of their stuff. Produced by Rankin and Bass. Distributed by ABC. This was a TV movie. And it was released in May of 1980. So right around the time The Empire Strikes Back came out. And notably, the last Rankin and Bass one also came out in 1977, which is when the first Star Wars movie came out. So
it just so happens... Unless they did it on purpose.
They were like, we have to ride the coattails.
Yeah. They're like, the people are going to see a story of epic proportions already. So why not sneak ours in, too?
I don't know about that.
Feature.
I don't know. I think Rankin and Bass are in a whole other universe. If we're going to be honest. Okay. So, of course, I think this goes without saying... We had neither... Like, you didn't know this existed. I knew this existed from doing this research. Because that's the thing. I knew about the...
But not before.
No, right? So
that's what I want you to do. Because you say that sometimes, but this previous experience is before your research.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying in contrast to the Bakshi movie, I've known that existed forever. Okay. I just hadn't seen it. Whereas these Rankin and Bass TV specials, I did not know even existed until like assembling like what our season would be.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I'm saying I didn't know until the research, because I didn't know like some of these movies I haven't seen, but like I know they exist, and I might have some tangential experience with them in terms of like pop culture impact or just like seeing footage from it in like a trailer or like a YouTube video essay talking about it or whatever.
Of course.
Like I've watched a YouTube video essay about the Peter Jackson Hobbit movies, but I have not watched them, the movies themselves. Like I watched a video about how how the production impacted the quality of the movies and stuff, right? And in contrasted to this, I did not know this existed at all, and I presume you didn't either.
No.
Yeah. Well, do you want to hear some background on how this came to be?
Yeah.
How does the movie is like a Hobbit. Small, unassuming, but has a lot of heart.
Sure.
I was saying to this Viviana off mic. Spoiler alert, this is my favorite of the three we've watched.
You don't have to spoil.
I'm spoiling.
Do
I'm doing
the
it.
background. Focus
I'm
on the
sorry.
task at hand.
I'm sorry. Okay, so in terms of the background, after the 1977 broadcast of The Hobbit on NBC, development and production began on The Return of the King at Rankin Bass Production in New York City under supervision of Arthur Rankin Jr. and Jules Bass. The film's original working title was Frodo, The Hobbit 2.
See, so they did see it as similar.
But you were saying it was similar, therefore they didn't do it. But in this case, they're doing it because it's similar.
I don't.
Their release was threatened by a lawsuit. This is very interesting. So the release was threatened by a lawsuit filed by the Tolkien estate and Fantasy Films. I think that's like probably the holding company that they have for the film rights, I guess. On the basis that Rankin Bass had not secured the U.S. and Canadian television rights to the book. The lawsuit was settled, quote unquote, amicably, allowing it to proceed with the May 1980 release. So I guess there were certain rules. I think I remember reading about this, that there was some weird thing about the book, at least The Hobbit, falling into a certain level of public domain, but not completely. So it was like Rankin Bass made The Hobbit because they were like, oh, we don't need the rights, but it turned out they did under certain, because of like, it was a U.S. I forget. I could be completely mixing all that up.
Are you telling me that not only is there copyright, but there's also copyright based on country?
Yes. That's the whole basis of that movie Tetris, about like who will get the distribution rights in certain because basically I hold a copyright.
Well, yeah, the guy. What do you mean?
No, but here's the thing. So let's say I hold a copyright to I'm Tolkien. I write Lord of the Rings, right? People can come to me and say, I want the universal rights to this, or I just want to buy the rights to distribute this in Denmark.
Oh, wouldn't it be blanket? Why is it?
Well, you could do it for different, because you could then sell it piecemeal, because that's a lot of money, because that's a lot of territory, so that's a lot of money. So one company may not want to have it all, like they might not care. So sometimes you'll see movies that you think of as like a Warner Brothers movie or a Universal movie. Like, it'll be a Warner Brothers made movie and it will be distributed by Warner Brothers in the United States, but they'll sell the international distribution rights to Universal. So like you'll see a movie that is a Warner Brothers movie being distributed by Universal if you live in whatever country.
What?
Because it's cheap. Because again, it's like, why would I do it? Like, I'd rather license it to you and you do the work and then I get a kickback.
Yeah, like if someone goes to Tolkien and then is like, hey, can I make a movie of your book? And he's like, okay. And then someone else is like, hey, I want to make a movie with your book. And then he's like, okay.
But here's the thing, it's not necessarily one-to-one.
Then they both have the...
In that first example, though, they don't just go up and say, can I have permission to make this movie? It's usually a company buying the exclusive rights to make the book for a set period of time. Think about like with the superheroes in the 90s with Marvel. Marvel sold, basically because Marvel Comics, like the comics company, was more or less bankrupt in the 90s. So they started selling off the film rights to their characters. Mm-hmm. So like, that's why they sold the film rights to Sony. And I think Spider-Man specifically, Sony ended up actually partially buying the character, not just the film rights. But another example, like Fox buys the film rights to X-Men and Fantastic Four. Universal buys the film rights to Hulk, right? So the idea, that's why Fox, they would basically make a Fantastic Four movie every 10 years, because basically, per the rules of the agreement, you have the rights unless you don't do anything with it for a 10-year period. Mm-hmm. So that's why, like, every 9 years, they'd be like, we've started development on a new... So just so they could hold on to the rights. But all rights are different. Any contract can have any terms that you want. It's just those were the terms of those contracts.
So you're telling me you can also you can also section these things off.
If you want.
Section them.
But you do so at your own peril, because then if you sell off a lucrative part, someone else might not want the other unlucrative bits. You know what I mean? It depends on the situation. It's very case by case.
But, so you can own part of Spider-Man, and you can own the right to make this movie, but only in certain places?
It's not about making it, about distributing it. Because so here's the thing. So here's a little inside baseball for you, okay? There's three elements of filmmaking, and this mostly applies to feature films in theaters, but you can apply the same principle to TV or streaming, whatever, right? There's three bubbles: production, distribution, and exhibition. Production is what it sounds like. It's the actual making of the movie, right? So let's say I'm Peter Mancuso and I make movies, hypothetically.
Yes.
Right? I have a company that you all heard at the beginning of this episode, the New Arts Workshop.
Yes.
Right? If I make a movie, the production company is going to be through my company, the New Arts Workshop. We are the production company, right?
Yes, of course.
We then sell the movie, or rather, we strike a deal with Warner Brothers to distribute my movie. They're the distributor.
Yes.
Distribution.
Yes, I know this
Okay.
part.
See, here's the thing, though. I get annoyed because you act incredulous, and then I'm explaining it, and then you act like, well, I always knew that. I'm like, well, you didn't, because I'm explaining. That's why I'm explaining this.
No, I know. I'm saying this part. I know this part.
Well, here's the thing, right? So, but what is distribution?
Thinking along.
Distribution. But here's the thing. What is distribution? Distribution of a movie is the marketing. It's the working with the theaters.
The theaters, yeah. Right?
But here's the thing. Theaters are the exhibition part of it. That's the third bubble. Right? So you might think, oh, the theater, like the distributor is the one who works on taking the movie made by the production side of things and distributing it to the exhibitors. Right? So, and that doesn't just mean physically, but again, like marketing, like getting people to go see this movie. And in the early part of Hollywood, there was that the companies controlled all three, and it was a monopoly. So in the 40s, there was a famous case, United States versus Paramount, but it wasn't just Paramount. Like it was Paramount. It was all the basically.
That's why they made a bunch of movies.
Basically, the federal government said you can keep two, you can't do all three. So basically, the film studios decided production and distribution is where the money was really at, and that's why you have AMC and Regal. Like these are not owned by the companies. Whereas like back in the day, like you would go see a Warner Brothers movie at a Warner Brothers like owned theater. Like that's why you get the idea of the multiplex, this idea of multi-screen movies from different distributors.
Is that what that means?
Well, multiplex just means that there's multiple screens.
Well,
because most movie theaters were just one giant screen. That's why so many Broadway theaters are old movie houses. Back in the in the 30s, yes.
I just thought it was multiple screens. I didn't realize it was like
no, it's multiple screens. No, you're right. It's multiple screens.
One is dedicated to showing Warner Brothers, and one is dedicated to showing Fox. Like,
well, it's not necessarily dedicated, but no, I misspoke. Multiplex is because there's multiple screens.
Okay, yeah.
Because most movie theaters were one screen, if not maybe two or three, maybe, right? But usually those were smaller second run theaters, right? All of this to say, if I'm the production company, I might sell the American distribution right. This is a big thing for foreign films. Like Disney, like Studio Ghibli movies, or Ghibli. I like Ghibli. I prefer Ghibli than Ghibli. Because it's funny. Studio Ghibli movies, are made in Japan. Yeah. And then they're distributed in Japan by a Japanese distribution company.
Yes.
But that Japanese distribution company might not have the resources to distribute this internationally. They might not have the money or resources to really do that effectively. So at least, I don't know if they still do it, but I don't think they do it at all anymore. But like in the late 90s or early 2000s, do you know who distributed Studio Ghibli movies in the United States? Disney. That's why it's Noah Cyrus and the other Jonas brother, right? In Ponyo, Frankie, right? Because they're ostensibly Disney projects almost in terms of distribution. Because so what Disney did is that Disney buys the right to distribute it in North America. Do you see what I'm saying? Because they are better equipped to distribute it in the United States. They have the connections. They have the infrastructure.
Okay, well, I'm confused on many things. But for this one, specifically, wouldn't Studio Ghibli be paying Disney to distribute? Like a contractor? Like, hey, we can't...
No, that's what I'm saying. No, because you're thinking of it as Disney commissioned this. No, like, this was already made, and Disney was like, we want to distribute it. Well, I don't know who went to who first, but the idea is they both make money.
No, I know. I'm saying you said that Studio Ghibli, they make the movie and then they distribute it, right? And
No, but they don't distribute it. It'll be like, let's look up an example.
A different Japanese country.
Let's look up Ponyo
company
as the example, because we already talked about it. So it was distributed by Toho, which is a Japanese, like, they're famous for,
okay, so they do that, and then Toho is like, hey, for why would they not be able to do that? Doesn't make any sense.
Because Toho doesn't necessarily have the money or the resources or the infrastructure. They don't have the relationships with advertiser platforms, like channels. Like, it's all, like, you know what I mean? Like, they don't have necessarily the knowledge of, like, how to get people in Milwaukee to go. Like, they don't even know what Milwaukee is. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay. So whereas Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures, which is the distribution arm of the Walt Disney Company, they know how to get people to go see a movie in Milwaukee.
So Toho would pay them to do that?
No, Toho has the rights. Well, now you're getting to a whole other thing, because let's just assume Toho had nothing to do with the making of this movie.
Okay.
I don't know if Toho also helped finance the movie on a production level, but let's say they didn't.
I'm saying the distributor.
Toho has zero say or rights as to how the movie's distributed outside of Japan. Now, sometimes movies are made internally.
But wouldn't distribution cover it blankly?
No, because it's distributing it only in that country.
Because the idea is that you don't have the capacity to do it internationally, not that you're not allowed to do it internationally.
Well, they might be. It depends on the deal. Every deal you're looking for, like, a blanket rule. It's every contract is different.
Oh, it's one of those.
But so for this situation, the contract was probably just for the Japanese territories, or like Southeast Asia, or whatever it was. I don't know where it extended. So the film was originally released in Japan by distributor Toho. It doesn't say Southeast Asia, so they may have only had the rights. Whereas, now here's another wrinkle. Sometimes distributors, because even though, like, the Supreme Court broke up the monopolies, they still have way too much power. Sometimes films will be made internally. So, like, Disney makes most of the films that they distribute are also being commissioned and made internally. Because the Walt Disney Company is not the distributor. Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures is the quote-unquote distributor, but it is owned by the Walt Disney Company, which also has Walt Disney Animation Studios, which is a production company, which owns Pixar, which is an animation company, well, a production company. They own Lucasfilm, which is a production company. So what will happen, it's basically, we're going to commission the movies, and then we're going to use our own distributor to distribute the movies.
But then you can only own a portion of it, then things are chopped up.
But you also think you own it. It's more of like the right to license it. It's about rights. Who has the right to distribute it?
But that's not forever.
Because I could go
for a certain time, right?
I could buy 5,000 DVD copies of Star Wars, and I could go to a movie. Well, I can't legally, but, like, by this logic, like, I can't just go to a movie theater and say, like, look, I'm going to distribute Star Wars. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't have the rights to distribute Star Wars and have movie theaters show it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, you're a person.
Okay, but okay, let's say I formed a company. I would have to get permission from the rights holders to distribute it.
Okay.
I don't know why you're so confused. It's just basic, like, you have the right to do something or you don't have the right to do something in certain regions. Like, I have the right, like, if I owned a plot of land, I have the right to do what I want on that plot of land, but my rights to build don't extend to other people's plots of land, right?
I know. I didn't realize there were so many things to write.
It's very complicated.
Like,
it's very complicated.
We didn't even talk about the music thing, where it's like the original composition or and the lyrics.
Yeah.
Or you could do the lyrics and then make your own composition or vice versa.
Yeah.
And that's just... Why'd you guys have to make things so complicated?
You guys?
Business people. White men, I suppose.
Well, it's because the more ways you can atomize it, the more money you can make because you can sell off constituent parts, right? So tying all this back to this, we're 20 minutes in and we've just been talking about copyright, which is interesting. I actually really like talking about this, but the long and short of it is that Rankin Bass, I guess there was a lawsuit because they had not properly secured the rights to make a TV movie and have it distributed in the United States and Canada.
Aren't they a U.S. company? No.
Rankin Bass, yes, but they did not get the rights. They have to go to the Tolkien estate, say, we want to make this movie, we want to distribute it in the United States and Canada. They have to then go look and say, okay, does someone have the rights to distribute that in that region? Someone else might have the rights to distribute it on TV around the world. Someone may only have the rights for Canada. But they have to go look and say, what have we already given out? What rights have we already assigned to people?
Can people get denied?
Yeah, I can't just make any movie. I have to get permission from the person who owns the rights.
But they can...
I can't just make a Harry Potter movie.
I know, but they can say no.
Yeah.
So if Tolkien is dead,
It's his estate.
Who is running his estate?
The executors of his estate. It might be his children. It might be someone he sold the estate to, or it's. I mean, now you're getting into basic, how does an estate work?
Okay, so random people, not the actual creator, is now making that decision. So
yes.
The estate can own something, and that person who literally made it cannot own it, or in a sense, they would.
They would own it when they were alive. It depends on who holds the rights to it.
I know, but what if they're alive and they give it to like George Lucas?
George Lucas has literally zero say on what happens with Star Wars. The minute he signed that contract, because he sold the rights. It's like if you sell something. If I sell something on eBay, I can't then go to that person and be like, "Oh, can I borrow it?" I have no legal right to have this thing anymore. Now you're just getting into basic property, the theory of property rights, which I mean, as a communist, I'm against. But that's just the way. No, I'm not a communist. That's not true. But I am. So I don't really care about what it should be. I'm just telling you how it is, and this is how property rights work for anything.
Well, it's very interesting.
If I have children and I die, my property, depending on what I put in the will.
I know, but I'm saying that person is no longer alive to run their estate.
And that's why you have executors.
And so it's not even that person. It's crazy. I was just interested because this is coming up already in the US. But then you got the Peter Jackson doing stuff in New Zealand.
Well, I think you're thinking about, it doesn't really matter where it's made. We're talking about where it's distributed. What customers can buy it is the idea. Right? Yeah. So the idea is not, the filming in New Zealand's inconsequential.
Okay.
The thing is, I'm actually really curious who distributed the Lord of the Rings internationally. Hold on. Now we're really going down a rabbit hole.
And also, Orlando Bloom is British, so then there's him being...
That's irrelevant.
No, I know. I'm just saying all the paperwork. Then he's got to get a working visa to go over to film, and then...
Well, yeah.
And then they gotta... Oh, there's so much to do. Jeez.
Let me see. Released.
What happened to the good old days where you just press record and...
But my point with all of this is that don't think about where it's made. Think about who is it being sold to. Because that's what's valuable. Because if you're a business, you want to know, okay, I want to have the right to sell this thing to these customers because those customers have money. Or they're going to like this product, right? So, the distribution rights for... I'm trying to think of, an example. But, a movie that I think will play really well in Japan. Okay, I want to get those rights to distribute this movie in Japan because I think I can make a lot of money doing that. Mm-hmm. Right? So, all of this to say, in this case, I guess Rankin and Bass did not properly secure the rights to make a movie that would then be distributed. In the United States and Canada. And again, those are usually lumped together because they're both English-speaking countries right next to each other. So usually we call them North American rights, though I don't know if that also always extends to Mexico.
Well, they have French.
Predominantly. Well, I don't know about predominant, but my point is that it's a similar culture.
No, I know.
It's a similar customer
Isn't
base,
it
which
cut
is
in
important.
half? No.
No, so basically it's like...
I know they're different provinces, but like in terms of language.
I would say if you had to split it right down the middle, the East is more French because that's the part that France colonized first. And then the British took it over and then moved farther west. So that's why you have British Columbia all the way on like the West Coast. Yeah. But that's not entirely true.
Quebec and Toronto. But Toronto's closer to close to New York.
Because like I said, it's in the East.
But it's really Quebec that has the French.
Well, it's also class-based, too. So Toronto is a major hub, so there's more money, so it was more the British. Whereas it was like the French people that were like the original colonists who were poorer. Mm-hmm. That ends up becoming like Quebec and all that stuff. Right. Shall we continue?
Things are so complicated.
Well, it is very complicated, but what the basics of what we're talking about should not be complicated. Basically, someone has own something, and then you go, I want to have the right to sell that thing to a certain customer base. And I go, okay, or I go, no, and I could say no because I don't want to give it to you. I could say no because someone already has those rights. Like, I've already sold the rights to that person.
The thing that I was confused about is that if they had the rights to make it anyways.
But that's what I'm saying. That's why that's how we started this conversation. I think there was an issue. They thought it was public domain but it wasn't public domain in the way they thought it was.
Okay.
So technically, they didn't have the rights that they needed to do it.
Interesting. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
I could be completely making that up, but I think I remember reading either about this or about The Hobbit that we watched earlier, that there was some issue of certain levels of public domain because countries have different laws about copyright and public domain.
Now there's different. Oh my god.
Well, yeah, it's not, there's no international governing body, unfortunately. We don't have a world government. So the United Kingdom might have different copyright laws than the United States.
Okay. I thought the issue was that they bought the rights but didn't realize that it was country based.
No, they would have known that.
So,
they would these were people in the business. They would have known about I believe I could be completely making this up. But from what I remember vaguely, again, I think there was confusion about what rights they needed to get. Mm-hmm. I think that was the source of the issue, but nevertheless they worked it out and it now exists.
Okay.
Director Arthur Rankin Jr. Let's move on. Director Arthur Rankin Jr. later stated, quote, "We tried to do Return of the King, but it is an awful lot to put into it. I think Peter Jackson is having the same problem in his films." Because this is later on. "You can't deviate from these books or somebody will wait on the street for you. In Return of the King, we had to summarize what happened before and then put it all together in 2 hours. It's not a very good film," end quote. Asking why he chose only to make Return of the King instead of making the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy, Rankin admitted, "I didn't know that the audience would sit still for it. I was wrong." That's the thing. There's a lot of money to be made, but no one thought. And that'll be a thing we'll talk about with the Peter Jackson ones, that there was like a lot of skepticism of like, this is so much money and investment. Will people go?
Yeah.
Like, do people actually care?
Like, if people didn't, like, if it didn't turn out that way, that would be like a tremendous loss. Like just production, actors, like location, like. And the time, wasn't it like 2 years straight or something? I think it was something, like 18 months.
I think it was 400 and something straight days of production. Straight, maybe days off, obviously days off for weekends, but like in terms of like a consistent production.
Yeah, like that's just like so much money.
And time.
And they're long, and there's 3 of them.
Like, I love those movies. Like,
so like if they flopped, that would be really fucking bad.
There are plenty of movies that I like more than the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies, but those 3 movies are probably like it's miraculous. Mm-hmm. Those films turning out as well as they did, as consistently good that it feels like just one really long amazing movie.
Well, they filmed it that way.
No, I know, but I'm saying like you could imagine that maybe like different parts had different quality like as it went on. Yeah. It's nothing short of miraculous.
Yeah.
This movie is far from miraculous. So what do we think of this?
I don't know if it's like because I suppose I'm not as familiar
Like,
with...
take the Peter Jackson thing, like, just looking at it as its own thing compared to the other two.
I know. I said, well, I suppose maybe it's because I'm not as familiar with the ending, which I feel like is not true. But, like, with the third movie, but this one was just, like, so confusing. But I also think it was, like, the editing and the, like, storytelling, though, because it was kind of, like, all over the place. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Because it's trying to...
I was like, I know this happens, but, like, what the fuck is going on? I don't know how to describe it. It was very strange. Anyways, what did you think? You really liked it.
Well, let's talk about what you were saying. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know if it was confusing. I feel like it was held back. My short, like, my one sentence review of this is that it's better. It's much better than it has any right to be. Right? Considering that it is a fairly cheaply produced TV animated movie, adapting the third book of a trilogy, but skipping the first two books. And it's not like it's a short book. Like, it's a very dense thing, and trying to, like, if it was just a movie, if it was just doing The Fellowship, but trying to do 90 minutes, it would still feel condensed because they had to cut out so much stuff anyway. So there's so much that's holding this back, but I feel like I didn't find it confusing. I think it was just strangely paced because they're not only jumping into it, like they're jumping into it at a weird part, without all of the context for stuff. Like, they do, like, I did kind of find, like, okay, if this is the assignment, make a 90-minute adaptation of the third book in a very dense trilogy. I feel like they did as good of a job as they could have done. Like, that opening song, which the songs we're back to these awful songs, which sucks because Rankin and Bass songs are usually pretty decent. So I don't know what's going on here. But the opening song is almost like a prologue, it's like a silent prologue where basically we're seeing the events of the first two book like play out kind of mostly. And I think they did. I think they made a good choice of, like, okay, if we're gonna do this, we're really just gonna focus on Frodo and Sam. Yeah, and the hobbits in general. Like, there's a little bit of, like, the stuff of the battle at Gondor, but usually either Merry or Pippin are there. Like, there's always a focus on the hobbits, and, like, not concerning themselves as much as they can get away with the Gandalf stuff, with Éowyn, or not Éowyn. Éowyn is the one. Arwen is Liv Tyler, but Éowyn is the blonde lady, the I am no man. Yeah. Right. I always get them mixed up, but Éowyn is the lady in this movie, the fighting lady. Yeah. Arwen.
Arwen.
Arwen,
yes.
right? So I appreciated this movie for like by contrast to the Bakshi movie, where it's like it's interesting to learn about the production. I appreciate this not from learning about the production, but kind of like seeing how it unfolds and going like if I was in this position, like, what would I do? Like, how would I go about, like, again, if the assignment is this, I thought they did as good of a job as they could have possibly done. But I disagree with the idea that it was confusing.
It's like,
especially it could be it's only confusing if you don't know the context, but you and I know the context.
I know, that's the thing, is that I was like, okay, I know what's going on. I know what happens next. I know what should be happening. But for some reason, it just like I was just a little lost. Like, I don't know. Maybe it was just like the way it was told. Like, if someone is verbally telling you a story, right? Because this is like
we do have two
retelling.
We have Gandalf and the minstrel singing songs.
Yeah, I don't know why there's two.
Frodo of the Nine Fingers.
So, I don't know. There was just something about it that was just like a little messy, and like I was lost, even though I knew what was going on and like what should have been happening like in the moment. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, I think also what happens, I think maybe one of the reasons why is because we spend so much time with Sam. Because it starts off with Frodo having been captured. I want to say like the first 30 minutes is basically just Sam. Which was really cool because it like explores his temptation by the ring, which is like an important thematic idea of the franchise is like everyone like the danger of the ring is not because like the people like because remember when he's like Gandalf's like I dare not take it. And then during like the first Fellowship meeting, Sean Bean, I always forget the character's name, so I always just say Sean.
Yeah.
Bean. He's like, oh, why don't we use it to defeat Sauron?
Yes, of course.
Right? There's like this pervasive theme of this idea of like the ring isn't just gonna just turn you cartoonishly evil. It's that it's gonna tempt you by thinking, oh, you'll be able to resist the evil.
Yeah.
You'll use it for good.
Yeah.
But the idea is that it's impossible. It's only doing that to bring it closer to its master. Right?
Yeah.
So there's this,
Well, that's the sad thing about his character. What is Boron? No, Bor.
Oh, it is something like Boralus or something. Oh shit, what's his name? I'm such a fake fan. Sean Bean, Lord of the Rings character. Boromir.
Like that's
I always forget his name.
That's the sad thing about Boromir is that he's.
I think deep down he thinks
like,
he's doing it for good. Like
he's like, Frodo, like you're being selfish. Like I'm trying to save my people. Like, dude, come on. Like what the fuck?
Exactly.
But he's like, no.
Because the whole point is that because hobbits are just so simple, they just have zero ambition. Is like the point, right? And we even see that here. It's like Sam has a vision of like him defeating Sauron and like leading a charge on his little pony and like essentially becoming Sam the Strong. But then at the end of like this really like intense vision, he's like, no. It's like really cute because that's the reason why Frodo is the one who has to take on the burden, because the idea is that obviously he ends up failing in the end, but the idea is that he's able to make as far as he is because hobbits are just like so simple. Like we see, and that's why like I feel like the Hobbit book is actually like a really good, like I don't think it should be considered a 4-part story, but I feel like the Hobbit's a great prologue to the Lord of the Rings because it sets the table of like what are hobbits like. Because the whole idea is like Gandalf's like, don't you want to go on an adventure? He's like, no, when you go on adventures, you're late for tea. like you know what I mean? Like it's like that kind of worldview.
Yeah.
So but I think that does aid in you being not confused, but feeling disoriented because we haven't like it'd be like watching the 4-hour Return of the King, and an hour and a half is just Sam. Like we're not even cutting back to other people, right?
I got that part. I guess I've always felt like the like roping Rohan into it has like always been kind of like
tacked on almost.
Just like kind of shoved in there.
Whereas the Battle of Helm's Deep feels very organic because it's like this. Like,
yeah, and so there's like the cutting between, you know, like Rohan and like other stuff, and so it's like I don't know, like it's always. I always forget why they go, but then they end up at the battle and I'm like, oh yeah, they went to like go recruit them. But like there's like a mini story within that about the king and like the what's his name? Slimy? Slippery.
Worm in the second one, Wormtongue.
Wormtongue.
Slimy, wormy. Slimy and wormy.
And so there's that, and then there's also like extended bits too, like you were saying with Sam. Which
I love. Sam's one of the best characters.
That was more cohesive. I don't know. I think it's just like the going back and forth or something. It's just like it just feels very spread out.
Like here's why it doesn't work to a certain level, because like getting 30-minute Sam focused section would work better if they had done films for the other 2 books. So it's like this is like a weird like change of pace where we've been with Frodo as like the focus this whole time, but now we like are forced to. It's like Kingdom Hearts with the Kingdom Hearts 2 with Rock with the opening bit where it's like the whole point is that it's supposed to make you miss Frodo, I guess, in a sense, like narratively miss Frodo, but we don't really know this version of Frodo all that well.
I think it.
You know what I mean?
I think it was like I don't remember him like being kidnapped. Like, it just started off with him being gone.
But that's on you, because that's very
then,
much a part of the...
No, I know it happens, but then it's like, I don't know, it was just very strange. And then there were no orcs, and it was like, oh, they all killed each other, and then it was just, I don't know, there were just like little things that were just like either like smoothed over or like kind of smushed in there, and I was just like what is this detail? Like, why? Like, this, it's making it muddy by putting all these things into it, because there's already the pacing of switching between 3 different stories, and those stories within themselves are a bit intricate, right? Like with Rohan, so it's not just like, oh, we're gonna go here and ask them to help. It's like there's like a whole situation with the king, and then it's like, okay, so they're like very like detailed stories on their own.
Yeah.
Within, like, we're cutting back between like the 3 of them.
Well,
basically.
to be fair, you're talking about something from Two Towers. That has nothing to do with this story, though. All the Rohan stuff is from the Two Towers.
No, I know.
I'm
just saying like similar things.
I think, in all honesty, I think part of me was like, why did they even include the Gandalf stuff, the Battle of Gondor, all this stuff? Like, they should have just focused on Sam and Frodo, like, the entire time. But then I realized, I guess you need that stuff there to narratively kind of, like, build the tension of, like, the urgency of Frodo and Sam doing it. Of destroying the ring. Like, obviously there's the urgency because it's like evil, but like, why does it have to happen right now?
Yeah. It's
like they don't necessarily realize it, but like narratively for the audience, we know like, oh, like once they do that, like the battle will be won. Because right now they're losing the battle. Right? It's kind of like at the end of the Phantom Menace, where it's like the Gungans are losing the battle, but then Anakin destroys the control ship, and they all like die. Do you know what I mean? So, like, I think maybe that's why they included it, but that does create, again, you can't just include it passively. It's like, it itself is like this dense, interconnected story. So I think it's just, again, it's a movie that has a bunch of, like, handicaps to it, in the sense of, is that not politically correct to, like, use? Because when I say handicap, I don't mean, like, it's damage, but what I mean is, like, I think they talk about like in sports where it's like an artificial, like if I'm playing a video game, people sometimes like put self-imposed challenge of like, I'm not going to use this ability as like a self-imposed challenge. Like that's what this movie is like. There's a bunch of self-imposed challenges. Again, it's 90 minutes adapting a very dense book. And it's not just a very dense book in a vacuum. It is the third part of a larger trilogy of dense books. And so it's like, it's like at a certain point it almost feels like cruel to beat this movie down, because I'm just like for what the assignment was, it's, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's like, I thought it had pretty good voice acting, and by good I mean at least entertaining. It wasn't boring, whereas the Bakshi one kind of felt boring at times. This one is very Rankin and Bat. Like Merry and Pippin, they're like, whoa, but then we're gonna go blah, blah, blah. Like it's all very animated, no pun intended. Like very like histrionic and like,
yeah,
which was at least entertaining. The songs do suck, like I said. Though sometimes they're like hilarious. Like the orcs have a song where there's a whip, whoosh, there's a way.
I'm gonna tell you I'm gonna tell you that's my favorite part. That was pretty funny.
Looking at Letterboxd reviews, that's a lot of people's favorite part.
Really?
But I don't know, ironically or unironically, that remains to be seen. Where there's a whip, whoosh, there's a way. Whoosh. But I don't know. Like I wrote down in my notes. You're kind of convincing me a little bit. I wrote down in my notes. It kind of works? ? Like going into, I thought this would be a dumpster fire because of how it's being constructed, but I was kind of like, I wrote here, you know, it does the best it can to give the best impression of the entire trilogy. Like you may not have all the details, but like you get like a sense of the journey so far. Like I will say, like the narration does a good, and also interestingly that this is basically a framing device, because they basically start the movie after everything's happened.
That's like,
and it's like Bilbo's next birth, like his 120 something birthday.
Yes.
And Bilbo's like, but Frodo, what happened to my ring? Frodo, what happened to your finger? and then we do the whole story. And then they do the whole story. They come back to the present day. Bilbo fell asleep. It's like, Bilbo, everyone else in the room was there. You're the only one who needed to be told this story, and you fell asleep. You didn't even hear it.
Oh my frick. But yeah, it was kind of like Robin Hood with the rooster telling the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, like the Disney Robin Hood.
Yes.
Okay.
What other Robin? Oh, the man.
Literally every single other adaptation that's been around in folklore for like 1,000 years. What other Robin Hood? Oy vey. But you know what this movie does much better than the Bakshi movie? Mm-hmm. I could fucking see what's going on. Mm-hmm. And again, the character animations themselves are a mixed bag. The backgrounds are stunning. Mm. All of the artwork, whether it be of like a landscape or Gondor, like anything that didn't have to be animated, so they could just like do one really detailed picture.
Yeah,
it was gorgeous, stunning.
Yeah,
especially because like we're watching it on HBO Max, so it's like in HD, like it's very detailed, like it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you watch stuff that was like they made it with knowing that it would be on like a shitty small ass blurry TV from the 80s, and then when you watch it, like you watch like a 4K version of it, it like looks bad because like they didn't clean certain because they didn't think anyone would ever be able to see this in such detail. This benefited from being in HD. Or I don't know what resolution it was, but it seemed very sharp and it just looked very detailed and it was stunning.
Yeah.
So that made it a more of a visual treat, if you will. Now, if they could just pair that with more fluid animations. Now, I was going to say the rotoscoping from the Bakshi movie, but I don't know if that would be good either. But like just having like a little bit better animation, like the actual movement of characters and things paired with those stunning backgrounds, like this would be amazing. At least visually.
So. Did they look choppy to you?
Yes. They look like an animated TV movie from 1980. With very low budget, very simple, reusing just frames, right? So if like they're talking, it's just kind of like the same 3 lip movements, just kind of like cycling back and forth as they talk. Mm-hmm. Their facial expressions kind of static and stock.
This is true, yeah.
You know, and I was thinking about this, like, I feel like we would, even in 2020, like it's been more than 20 years since the Peter Jackson movies, but it still feels too soon because those movies are so iconic. I wrote in my notes, like, maybe at some point we should just get, like, a full-on animated adaptation of these books. Like, but, like, all made by the same person. Like do it as a series if you want. Like, don't make 3 movies. Like, make it, like, season 1 is Fellowship. And then, like, include everything. Like, but make the animation stunning. Like, do it as, like...
That could be fun.
Do it almost like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like, this, like more involved, serialized... story.
Yes, please change them. They look so silly.
Mm-hmm. Change what?
The way that they look.
Yeah, like, it would be like a different style.
Like Merry and Pippin, they look strange, and then I don't know, everyone looks weird. It's just like a weird.
Everybody looks weird.
It's just like a strange like characterization of them.
Yeah. Especially Frodo, which he looked exactly like Bilbo, and apparently it was the same voice actor too. So it was both. It was the same guy doing both Bilbo and Frodo in the scenes with both of them. He was just doing like an older guy voice, right?
Oh my God.
So, the only other thing I wrote, the Nazgul are scary, and the lead Nazgul sounds like a Dalek from Doctor Who.
Yeah.
He was like, "We serve our Lord Sauron," and they put like a filter on his voice to make it sound scary, but he just sounded like a robot. I only have one piece of trivia.
Okay.
The characters of Gimli and Legolas do not appear in this film at all, despite being major characters in the Bakshi Lord of the Rings. And both of their fathers being characters in the previous Rankin and Bass production, The Hobbit. Gimli's father is the dwarf Glóin, while Legolas's father Thranduil is the king of the elves in Mirkwood.
I didn't even catch that.
Right? So it's interesting that they were cut. But again, it's like you have to cut them out because like the Gondor stuff is already taking up too much time anyway. So basically they just whittled it down to Merry, Pippin, and Gandalf. And Aragorn shows up later as a very like almost like a lumberjack man. He's like very thick beard. He like, looks like Barabbas. Is like what I imagine Barabbas to look like. Just like a big husky man with like a thick beard. Do you want to hear some critical reception?
Yes.
So on Rotten Tomatoes has a 67%. There's no critical consensus.
Yeah.
Again, because I just think there's enough reviews of it for there to like for Rotten Tomatoes to bother making like a summarization of it all.
Yeah.
But on Letterboxd, in terms of my reception, it has a 2.8. I feel like that's way too low.
Really?
Yes.
Frick.
I thought this was so much better than the other two.
Yeah.
Whereas the other two were above 3.
Huh.
So I don't know. Maybe I'm like a weird... Maybe just because I was just like really annoyed by the other two, so I had low expectations for this. I don't know.
I don't know. That seems like really weird that you like... I mean,
I don't love this movie. I'm just saying, I think
fine that you... It's just like...
Like, I'd watch it again. I thought it was enjoyable.
I know.
Some parts I might fast forward through, but on the whole, it was pretty enjoyable. Here are some pretty funny reviews I found, okay? All right. Oh, here are some funny reviews I found, okay? Lindsay writes, Return of the King 2003 is good, but it doesn't feature the song Frodo and the Nine Fingers. So can it ever really be considered a masterpiece? Frodo! Why does the minstrel singer have such vibrato?
Fingers. I know. Why
Like, if you slowed it down, it'd be like that Cynthia Erivo video, the tart of the... Felipe says, has the most boring musical numbers you can imagine, and then casually drops the biggest banger of all time with Where There's a Whip, There's a Way.
Yes!
Where there's a
It's
whip,
so true.
there's a way.
We don't want to go to war.
Well, there's something interesting. I don't know if that's from the book, but at least in the Peter Jackson movies, they never give any characterization to the orcs. They're just like one-dimensionally
like
evil.
monsters,
They're just like
yeah.
mindless monsters, kind of. Whereas this, like, they do very briefly in the song touch on the idea that, like, they are also victims of, like, the war machine in a sense, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving it too much credit. Bridget writes, they just don't animate big, meaty hands like this anymore. That's weird, because the animation, they just have, like, really big, blocky hands.
Really big hands.
In terms of the legacy of this is maybe should have just been in the trivia section. The film is often... What's that?
Is there one?
What?
Is
there a legacy? No, that's what I'm saying. Maybe they should have just been in the trivia, but it's something that kind of happened after, I guess. The film is often mistaken for a sequel to Ralph Bakshi's 1978 animated film, The Lord of the Rings. After Rankin and Bass became defunct in 1987, Warner Brothers acquired the rights to the special for home video distribution and chose to market the film along with The Hobbit as installments of an animated Tolkien trilogy, with Bakshi's Lord of the Rings, by then also owned by Warner Brothers from United Artists, acting as the middle chapter. So they would distribute it on video as like a 3-film trilogy. The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and Return of the King. Even though
that's so weird.
It's completely different art style and aesthetic and all this stuff.
And wasn't Bakshi like very against the Rankin and Bass? Like he was like,
yes, very much so.
I just remember him causing lots of problems.
He was very much not into these. This false promotion led to rumors that Rankin and Bass had originally decided to produce The Return of the King upon hearing that Bakshi's sequel to his film had been canceled. However, this is what I was saying before. However, Rankin Bass had always planned on making The Return of the King as a follow-up to the production of The Hobbit, even before the release of Bakshi's film. So, you know, it's interesting that they would market it like that. Like, I'm sure they sold it as like a 3-tape package. 3 videotape package of like the Lord of the Rings trilogy or like the Tolkien animated trilogy. So imagine you watch The Hobbit and then watch Lord of the Rings and then watch... Like, you're gonna have such fucking whiplash. If you go into it thinking they're all meant to be like this one cohesive thing.
I guess because the Two Towers is like just the middle. So they're like, oh yeah, that happened.
Narratively, the 3 films cover the whole thing. But it's just that they're not meant to go together. Like, they're very clearly, like, obviously not meant to be seen as like a trilogy of any kind.
They kind of yada yada it with the intro songs.
They do, yeah. All right, Viviana. Favorite part. Sorry, I'm messing up the order here. Favorite part. Scene, character, actor, line, what?
Where there's a whip, there's a way.
There's a way. Where there's a whip.
I like the, we don't want to go to war.
We're British and we're going to war. For me, my honest answer is, as shitty, cheap, undefined animation as it is, Eowyn's kind of hot, I guess, and a badass because she's riding a horse.
She's like a different kind of animation.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's like everyone's like a different style.
It's like thinner lines and like.
I think we talked about that with The Hobbit, where it's like Gandalf looks like he's from a different thing than Bilbo did.
I mean, I guess it's on purpose because it's like to characterize the
humans versus like the hobbits, which are more cartoony.
Yeah, but it's like they're a little too cartoony.
Yeah.
Compared to like the humans, especially when they were in the. Well, I know it's not this one, but in the other one,
but it's just like footage of human beings in orc costumes, you mean, or?
Well, that, but then the Village of Men too.
Oh, the Village of Men in that first one was very different.
It was very different, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm not gonna actually say my favorite part was Eowyn being kind of tangentially hot. Maybe. I'm gonna say the backgrounds again, just like the actual artistry on display. I think is actually quite strong.
I think it's kind of funny how Tolkien put in that bit about being a woman.
Well, I like that.
Man can.
Well, I don't want to jump the gun, but we'll talk about it more thematically.
I didn't know he was being literally men. I thought it was just like humans.
Well, I think. Here's the thing.
Man.
Here's the thing. Is I don't want to jump the gun because we'll talk about it in a better. Version of the story.
Badass, but also like kind of silly.
Well, I think it's Tolkien commenting on the idea of like prophecy, and even though like we're like a secular, very unspiritual society, but we still have the idea of prophecy in terms of like, oh well, this is what this person or this group of people does or is going to do. Like, so this idea of like having preset ideas of what something means, because they assumed it meant humans. Right? But the prophecy just meant literally like no man. Right? So I think it's less about like that being important and more so the idea of Tolkien commenting on the idea of like our assumptions being challenged. By like what we think to be true. And it's not because we are completely wrong. It's like based off the information we have, like we just assume like, but that must be true. But there's so much more to truth beyond like what we can observe and perceive. So I've always kind of liked that. Like, it's kind of funny as, like, a meme. Like, I am no man. Like, it's funny.
It's just kind of random. And then you're like, wait a minute. What?
Well, it's random in this because we don't know Eowyn at all. Like, this is her first time being introduced. Is her taking off her helmet.
No, I guess
Whereas in the Peter Jackson movies, she was in the Two Towers.
But
she's in most of Return of the King.
Even that one, too. I'm like she's fighting. Okay, that's not normal for back then, right? For a woman to be fighting. But... you know, like classic Mulan. But, you know, then there's like, she won the battle because she's a lady.
Yes, exactly.
It's like, okay, bitch. Okay.
Okay.
I see you.
Viviana, 1 to 10. What are you giving the Return of the King?
I think I'm going to give it 5.
Oh, 5?
And
I can't believe
I'm trying to decide
That's
whether to put it above or below The Lord of the Rings.
Which would you rather watch? Again.
I guess the first one that we watched. Which one would that be?
What do you mean the first
Hobbit?
one that we watched? The Hobbit. Well, the Hobbit's you gave it a 6, so it's automatically going to be at the top. But I'm saying between the Bakshi movie and this.
I want to see this or that. I don't know. Probably the Banksy one.
Really? This is at your bottom.
But it's not honestly so weird to say. But like, I was like so lost.
I don't know why. I'm sorry. I'm putting that on you.
I don't know.
That you should not have been lost.
It was just
that was very clear because we know the context. It's not like you don't know.
I know. That's why I was confused. That's why I'm confused.
You're confused about being confused.
I'm confused as to why I'm confused when I know the story.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna do my hot take. I'm giving this a 7.
A 7?
Yes, I thought it was fun. Because here's the thing: is like when we watched The Hobbit, I was kind of like like this has like some ingredients to be really good, but it's just being held back by stuff. I think what was holding it back was the material of The Hobbit, which is just not particularly interesting. Whereas with this, I was kind of like, okay, you have some of the ingredients from The Hobbit, but now you have like a more interesting story. And again, I'm impressed by again how it's able to manage, however successful it is. That's up for debate. It's interesting to see how it executes the assignment of doing a 90-minute animated TV movie adaptation of the third book in a dense trilogy and not really do the first two. So the fact that I enjoyed it as much as I did, I think is a testament to like, well, I think like they did the best. Like it was very elegant. Like and when I mean elegant, I don't mean like it's regal, but I mean elegant, like very the way they try to again
Tasteful.
No, not tasteful, but like when I mean by elegant is like so simple yet effective how they're able to again not give us every single detail from the first two books, but give us like just enough of the impression of what has happened so that we can theoretically follow, but apparently maybe not. So
I also thought it was very jarring that they both kept and also made very explicitly clear about Frodo and Gollum. I thought that was just like a little. I didn't think they would put something like that in the children's TV movie.
Oh, by the biting the finger off?
Biting the finger off. Because he didn't just bite him, he bit his finger off.
Well, that's the whole idea, is that Frodo, in his devotion to the ring, loses part of himself literally. Right? And that's like the whole idea with Frodo, is that like the journey has changed him. Like it's like a soldier going to war. Like he comes back, and that's why he then decides to go with Bilbo on the boats, because like there's nothing left for him in this world anymore, because like he literally can't adjust to regular society again. Like, you know what I mean? Like Sam is able to, because he didn't have the same experience. Like it was obviously still an awful traumatic experience.
It's so weird though, because well yes, obviously, because you know when you're walking up the mountains of Mordor, you know it's a bit changing, but
it's a bit changing, as they say.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess that distinction has always been interesting to me as well. It's like there's nothing left for you.
Well, it's just the idea is that just like nothing is the same for him. Like the simple pleasures of life. Because the idea is that like,
but then how is Sam
he's lost the
able to
thing
go back?
that makes hobbits. Like again, like that very kind of like,
but Sam doesn't.
Devil may care kind of just like, because Frodo's the one who bore the burden. Like it wasn't like the ring spiritually changed him. Do you know what I mean? Like it warped him in a way. Where that it's like, you know what I mean? Like it just doesn't. It just like normal life like has lost its color. Not to say like he wants to now go back and like I want to go on another adventure. It's just like I basically like the sustenance of my life energy was sucked away. Like I just have nothing left anymore in me to give to anybody. Yeah. Where Samwise goes on to like get married and have lots of kids. Right? Frodo, I believe, just remains a bachelor. He kind of just, he writes down the story.
He's hanging out in heaven.
Right?
Oh, speaking of, okay. So, it's called The Return of the King. But I kind of forgot. Well,
Aragorn is the king.
Because
it's Return of the Rightful King.
I didn't realize that he was the king that was returning, because he was not the king, but I guess it's like a Simba thing. Where he's
precisely,
like,
it's like the lineage. Yeah.
Rightfully the king, so he's kind of like returning. I don't know.
Exactly.
And then also the thing that we were talking about is the dawn of man, or basically all the mythological.
They make it much more explicit in this movie.
Leaving.
They make it more explicit than the Peter Jackson movies, because in this, Gandalf literally talks about magic is ending. Look, hobbits, you'll eventually become men, because look, because Frodo, you're a little bit bigger than Bilbo, because you were born later, and Merry and Pippin, you're a little bit bigger than Frodo, because you were born later. So, like, eventually hobbits will just, because that's why I said hobbits are essentially just a subset of man, like, they're not their own species.
Yeah.
So the idea is that this basically, the destruction of the rings, because basically what the rings did was prolong. That's what the rings do, is that they prolong things. Yeah. Or they preserve things. So like with Bilbo, it like being alive. With the elves, it's preserving their magical realm. Right? So that's the sacrifice of all of the characters. Like, especially the elves. Like, they help Frodo on this journey, even knowing that by doing this, they're essentially going to destroy their way of life. And themselves. Like, they're going to die off. Right? But they know it's necessary because basically you can't hold on to the past. It's like the whole theme. Is that because basically life is about, it's like, circle of life has kind of become a cliche, but it's like life and existence is about change, about renewal, about cycles and seasons, and the time of magic was over. It was time for the Age of Man now, right? This makes it very explicit. Like, Gandalf literally explains it to the audience, whereas in the Peter Jackson movies, like, I didn't know that was part of it, to the point where I didn't know that this was meant to be the same universe as ours. That this is meant to be like 7,000 years ago.
Yeah, I didn't realize that meant like the whole of Middle Earth. I thought it was just like this one tribe of elves, or whatever. I didn't realize it was just like, here you go, Aragorn. Here's the entire world. Peace out.
No, he doesn't become king of the world. Just like
I know. I just mean in terms of men.
Well, we also don't know, again,
Humans.
like, is the rest of the world, because Middle Earth is only a very small portion, but if it's on our physical planet Earth, like, what's going on in the other parts of the world? This might have been the only place where there was magic and civilization, and humans hadn't spread out yet. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, there was no magic anywhere else?
I don't know, is what I'm saying. Like, Middle Earth, like, I don't know if there's meant to be other parts of this physical planet, this rock floating in space, besides just Middle Earth, because Middle Earth is bounded. Like a full map of Middle Earth is not a globe. Like, Middle Earth, that's another thing. I don't know where Middle Earth is supposed to be. Presumably not England.
Pangea.
Yeah, that's the thing. I guess it all doesn't really
This bitch don't know about Pangea.
This bitch don't know about Pangea. Okay, so anyway, so I'm giving it a 7, and that automatically puts it at the top of my list. What'd you ask?
I didn't ask anything.
But you said something and made a quizzical face, so.
I think I said anyways. I don't know.
Okay, anyways. I'm starving. I'm hungover. We had a party at our place last night. I have to piss like a racehorse. I think it's time we wrap this up. That's it for this week's episode of Now That's What I Call a Franchise. Next week, we'll be watching the next film in the franchise, the 2001 film, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. Viviana, where can they find us?
You guys can find us wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Franchise Podcast.
And if you have the time, leave a rating for us on Apple Podcasts, because apparently that helps. Sorry, I paused. I was thinking about how I haven't posted on Twitter in years.
I was going to say, like, do we even have the...
I refuse to change the script. Anyway, leave a rating for us on Apple Podcasts, because apparently that helps.
We're, and if you have even more time, leave us a review and maybe look to see where we actually are, since people...
We're on Facebook and Instagram. We know you have many podcasting options, and we thank you for choosing us. Peace out, guys.
Later, Gators.